Right, you know the cost of living.
I heard of it.
I don't want to linger on this because it's.
I'm aware of the old
cause
he lives. Yeah,
the cause he lives. I know it's not a fun subject, so I don't want to linger on it. But I feel like if you're an energy company, stacking the bill so that you cover the entirety of winter, and then send that to someone, feels like a prank. To have done it after you've installed new, more accurate meters that it turns out were, in fairness, seemingly letting me get away with quite a bit. Before the piper came knocking. That is to say, I am still in the middle of a currently 2-week-long and counting heart attack from having received a bill from the months of November through to the end of January. Thank God the house twink that I was putting up has moved out, because that would have, I don't know what kind of electrics were running with another queer nerd in the house. But that is to say, I have been having to learn the ways of my new people. For, as you may know, I live in Yorkshire. I do have access to Yorkshire dads, who are some of the most proudly cheap bastards you could ever meet.
I mean, particularly when it comes to energy usage, I think. Anything around, like, heating and, like, having devices switched on, that is, there is a northern way about things.
There's a lights on in the house vibe, right?
Yeah.
You're not in the room, the lights should be off kind of thing, yeah.
Absolutely. I've been trying to adopt some of that.
Heating is for people who don't own another 4 coats to put on.
Now, Fee's dad is the Vlad Tepes of energy conservation, and by that I mean there are literal spikes around the thermostat upon which people are impaled. Whoever dared to reach for the knob. So I need to learn his ways.
Having seen his, like, warehouse of things, I would not be surprised to learn that there's the tools for creating elaborate traps in there.
Oh no, there absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me an hour. Give me an hour. I'll give him a ring. I'll just be like, right, can you build me a death trap? And he'd be like, what sort? And he won't just have the pieces. He'll have manuals from somewhere, from some underground reaches. That garage is amazing. Huge record collection. Loads of cool old stuff. Yeah, apparently, when I met him for the first time, he took Fee to one side and said, don't fuck that one up. As in, not don't fuck me up, don't, fuck the relationship up, because apparently I was a keeper, and I think it's simply because I got excited over a record collection. and I think he was like, compared to all the other partners, I understand that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having a similar eye for the rustic, he's very excited to show me things like his big, giant, like 5-foot tall speakers he got recently, and oh my god, they are gorgeous. But yeah, I need to learn his ways, and just the ways of the Yorkshire folk, rather than just try and antagonise my husband with various northernisms about, walking around carrying batter in your pocket or whatever. I think I do need to learn from these peoples that are here, because I am a soft southerner. Not only am I a soft southern Briton, I'm a tropical climate conditioned Southern American, having lived in the Bible Belt for so long. Now look, I hate the heat. I hate it, but there's a reason that Fee compares me to a cat. I very much have a very comfortable setting, and I like to stay there.
You want to curl up on a warm spot and just stay at your little climate controlled zone.
Just a level temperature. I have put the heating right down, and it's not good. It's not good in February in Yorkshire. Plus, I'm of that age now, the joints. The joints. We've complained about this before, because I know you've got a knee injury.
I've got my knee injury and my dodgy knee that doesn't like the cold, but I've also started to notice my wrists don't like the cold. I was streaming the other night and I was like, oh, I gotta put another layer on because my wrists are hurting from the cold. I'm like, ugh. Oh, me joints are getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting it in my hands now.
I do think, like, a lifetime of video games has really fucked us hand-wise.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've noticed that a lot because I've been playing on that Odin that I've been talking about. So I have been on a handheld pretty obsessively because I've just been, like, playing PS2 games, clinging to the past desperately. So I have been, like, hyperfixated on it at times for hours. And then I realise my thumbs don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they do, but they're now been, for the next few hours, will have been purpose-honed to just push up, down, left, right.
They have no strength for any other function. Yeah.
No,
it's weird.
they can push a small plastic nodule with a bit of rubber on top of it. So I can still wank, so that's good.
Right.
But anything more than that, anything more sizable than that, and no tensile strength, which I don't even know if that's appropriate. I just wanted to say the word tensile. That's everything I've brought to the show today. That's the end of my presentation.
Well, I've brought a thing to the show that's not a video game but is tangential. That I want to do some tangential nonsense this week because I've been made aware of video game themed mystery flavored food.
Oh,
that's happened in the UK.
Good.
Pringles has a new flavour called Super Mario Mystery Flavour.
Oh god, it's not his pubes, is it?
I'm putting my money on Yoshi meat.
Oh, I tell you what, I reckon that would be quite succulent.
Right? Could be mushroom. Like, mushroom's
yeah.
like a lowball answer, but I don't know how you make mushroom a strong enough flavour that I would recognise it quickly in a Pringle.
Oh, I don't know. I could see that. I just don't know that it would be good. It would just be really, really earthy. Like, you'd have to have something else there.
I feel like it would be the kind of thing where the flavour isolated would not taste of mushroom, but it would have a bit of a smell and a bit of an aftertaste that kind of has a homeopathic air of mushroom soup.
Yeah. So I've not touched these yet. I am opening the seal now as we speak.
Wonderful.
First impressions of the smell. Not nearly earthy enough for me to assume mushroom.
Okay.
Almost a little spicy. Maybe? It smells like a good packet of, like, cheap, spicy ramen.
Okay.
Like, your flavor packet. Yeah, I need to give this a go. I don't think this is going to be the just umami that I had assumed that mushroom would be. It's not immediately smelling like meat. It's not making me think of Mario in any way.
So wait, when you think of Mario, you think of meat? I mean
I thought it was going to be Yoshi. I thought it was going to be Yoshi meat.
Fair enough, but
oh, I think I know what this might be, and this is maybe the most disappointing answer that Mario flavor could have been. It's like slightly. It's not disappointing because I genuinely like this flavor. It's kind of spicy tomato. I think it's like bolognese or something. I think they've gone for Mario is Italian, here's some Italian food flavored Pringles. I think might be where they've gone.
It does make sense. That makes me sad they didn't do a tie-in with Monster Munch because no one remembers the flavour. I seem to be one of a very small sect that remember spaghetti bolognese flavour Monster Munch, but it was fucking choice. And it hasn't been seen outside the 90s. So, everything's got a parent company now. There's only, 2 actual brands. So, let's shunt some of that Mario mystery over to Monster Munch so I can get me a spaghetti bolognese Monster Munch back. How is the Pringle, though?
Yeah, it's not a bad Pringle. It's slightly spicy, slightly tomatoey, slightly meaty, slightly oniony.
That's a way better flavour name. That should be it. Slightly meaty, slightly oniony, slightly tomatoey. That should be the full flavour name.
It tastes to me like generic flavour that you could put either on pasta or on a pizza and it would tell you this is Italian restaurant flavour.
There we are. Italian restaurant flavour.
Yeah, it's Italian restaurant flavour. And Look, Mushroom would have tasted worse, but I'd have at least respected that they went in on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Mario flavor Pringles. A good flavor, but an uncreative flavor.
Mario's
I would eat
mystery
this.
meat.
I would eat this if this was just a regular flavor. I'm disappointed that they tried to sell me that this was what Mario tastes like. Unless this is what he tastes like, in which case, if he tastes like this, maybe I got some new ideas in my head.
We need to pressure Nintendo to release a statement.
Yeah, what was this meant to taste of? What was this meant to be? What I taste when I suck him off?
Yeah, is this what Mario tastes like? Yeah.
Welcome to Podquisition. This is me trying to escape from sucking Mario off. We talk about video games here sometimes. Any of you played any of them this week?
I've played a couple. What about you all?
Yeah, I played only really one worth talking about really at the moment.
I've played mostly one. So do you want to kick us off, Conrad?
Sure, I'll do that. I started playing a game this week called Reality Break. This is a sort of space shoot 'em up with roguelite elements. You're operating sort of on a 2D plane, dual stick shooting, left stick flies navigation, right stick aims your weapon. And it's a looter shooter. You are shooting up little enemy craft, they're dropping kit, you're picking it up, you're deciding whether or not it enhances your build, you're selling it at space stations when you get the chance. It was described as Diablo in space. And I don't think that is a terrible assessment, but it is doing some pretty interesting stuff along the way. This is a game that introduces a mechanic early on for upgrading every piece of equipment in the game. Well, maybe not every, but most of them have some sort of upgrade path to them. There's a resource that you can collect from killing enemies. You have a limited amount of it that you can carry, which is sort of your gating of progression for the upgrading path of these things, so you can't get too powerful too quickly. But you collect this resource, you spend it, and it upgrades a facet of the equipment, whether it's its rarity, or perhaps in the case of a gun, its fire rate, or its damage, or damage across all of your weapons. All of these little modifiers that exist in Diablo-type games, you will have one of them in most equipment that you can upgrade with this resource, which is neat. It also extends out to the life of your character. There is a forced point about an hour into the game where it game overs you, and you have to restart with your character. And it's sort of a prestige system where you lose all of the equipment that you had looted and built up on your ship, but you get to start out with some advantages in terms of how quickly you progress and unlock some abilities that smooth it out to get back to the point you were at pretty quickly. I haven't done a second loop. I have started a second character because every character that you have, their contributions to that background progression applies to all other characters. And so there's the min-max opportunities for it seem utterly endless. Add to that, it's a pretty fun little shooter. It's very relaxed in terms of difficulty. It is one of those games where it's very easy to lose track of how much defensive capability you have going at the moment because there's so much on screen, and then you'll just die and it'll be like, oh, I'm dead. But the penalty for death, unless you're playing in the Iron Man mode, which is a permadeath setting, is really not that big a deal. It just respawns you back in the sector. Enemies that you damaged still have the damage they'd received. You don't lose any equipment. I'm not really even sure what the downside is to death outside of Iron Man mode. But it contributes to a fairly relaxing space shooter that doesn't feel overly demanding. It does have difficulty settings that you can implement for your specific characters, which then, leads to greater reward development and progression. all of that's neat. It feels like a very flexible shoot 'em up with a lot of depth and adjustability in its min-maxing, which I find interesting if tedious, because loot systems I always find them tedious. I am of a mind for optimization to where I don't like to waste anything, and that's just not possible in a game like this with that much loot. And sorting through it and sifting through it means having to stop the action to do that, and there are some systems that I have seen available to me that I haven't claimed yet that will streamline that, and I'm hoping I will see more of that later on, because looking at the numbers for me wears me out. But if you like looking at the numbers, if you really like min-maxing and the thought of a quick action, light shoot 'em up appeals to you, I would suggest taking a peek at this. It's doing some really interesting stuff with its prestige system and its varying leveling systems. I'm looking forward to seeing other types of ships. One of the cool things about the way this is set up, it's very clear that there are different classes of ship, and you are in a fighter at the start of the game, and you will start getting equipment that's only available for larger warships. But because of your capacity to rewrite facets of the equipment, most of the time, I think all of the time, when you get equipment that's too big for your ship to use, you can rewrite that to shrink it down so it's then usable on your ship. Little things like that. Well, and then they take up, it has a briefcase type storage for inventory. So some items take up more physical space in the inventory as well, and that's a way of maximizing the amount of space in your inventory without losing valuable items. There's just a lot going on, and I do think people should check it out. I'm still too early to have a verdict on it of any sort that's meaningful, but there's a ton of potential and a lot of just depth buried into this game. And I'm pretty sure this is a one-person developer job, which is super impressive. It looks great. It's got really good music. The action is fast, and yeah, I'm liking it. Reality Break, if you want to shoot 'em up that is a little more open and offers you some customization of equipment, boy, that's there for you. What about you, Lot?
Before I jump into my first my game that I've been playing this week, update on those Super Mario Pringles. Nice amount of spice that stayed on the tongue consistently for several minutes after just like one or two. I got curious. I had a look. There's a little bit of jalapeno in there.
Oh, jalapeno.
Yeah, jalapeno. There's some jalapeno in there, which would explain it's not overpoweringly spicy, but it's enough that, like, for a good few minutes afterwards, like, I could taste it had something spicy. I did some research. The internet does seem to be of the agreement it's either pasta or pizza. It's some kind of generic Italian meal flavor. It's not bad. I've been munching away quietly while we've been going. They're quite nice.
All right.
But yeah, I've been playing a thing this week that initially if you'd asked me a couple of days ago, my opinion would have been a lot more negative on, and it's really grown on me as the week's gone. I've been playing Rift of the Necrodancer.
I saw this. I was very curious. I loved Necrodancer conceptually, but I didn't enjoy playing it. So I was curious to see them take a stab at a different type of rhythm game.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know the Necrodancer stuff, Rift of the Necrodancer, sort of top-down Zelda-like, but you've got to do everything on the rhythm of the beat. This is a very different kind of music rhythm game. Rift of the Necrodancer is a what-if Guitar Hero, but instead of the notes just being notes, they were monsters that had unique behaviors. So the way that this starts is playing on PC, you've got like left, up, and right are your three tracks on this sort of Guitar Hero note track that's coming down, and you start off with enemies that are that just act like regular notes would in say your Guitar Hero. You've got your green slimes. When they reach the bottom of the note track, you press the corresponding direction on your keyboard to play that note. Thus far, very much Guitar Hero. Then you start getting coloured variants of enemies that will behave differently. So we start introducing things like different coloured slimes. Like a blue slime might need hitting twice. So it'll come down to the bottom of the note track and you hit it on the beat. It'll take one step back and you have to hit it again on the next beat before it fully goes away. Then you start getting enemies that, like, by default behave in different ways. So, for example, the default bat, you hit it when it reaches the bottom of the note track, and it will take a step back and you've got to hit it again on the next beat. But it'll also move one step in whatever direction it is facing. So if the bat was facing to the right, you hit it once on the middle track, it'll step back but also to the right. So on the next beat, you've got to hit it on the right track rather than the middle. Then you start layering in the fact that enemies might have shields, and if an enemy has a shield, you've got to do a double tap on the first beat that it reaches the bottom, and then hit it on any subsequent beats that you would usually have to hit it for its colour type. Then you start adding in more and more and more enemy types. You start getting stuff like, there's a little samurai where if you see or hear him unsheath his sword, on the next beat he's going to dash to the front of whatever track he's on. So you've got to be ready to, like, oh, I heard the unsheath, he's doing the anime super speedy dash, you gotta be ready to hit that on the very next note. And the thing that happens when you start layering all these mechanics on top of each other is that this becomes a very difficult and challenging music rhythm game, not because of the speed or complexity of the rhythms being asked of you, but because of the cognitive load of processing very quickly in real time the changing state of the board. So, like, the best way I think I can explain this is, let's say my next two upcoming beats on the note track were, one beat from now, there is a bat in the middle row, and a beat after that, there is a slime on the left-hand row. I would press on the button for where the bat is when its beat comes in, and it would step back and to the right, and now it's not just the slime that would have been on that second beat, it's the slime plus a bat on the right-hand row now. You can't look up the note track and go, oh, in 2 beats it's just a slime. You've got to take in, no, I've either got to instinctually recognise that bat's going to move back and it's going to be slime plus bat, or when the beat happens and the positions change, very quickly react to, oh, I've got to change up what I'm doing on this next beat. And that makes it a very different kind of challenge to play through. I did not think I was going to get on well with this when I played the demo. And I think it is a problem. It is an understandable consequence of the way the demo is designed. The demo gives you, like, 3 tracks to try playing that are one from the start of the game, one from the middle, and one from quite late. And the problem with that is that there is no gradually easing you into more complex enemy patterns. And it meant I played the second track on the demo when went, oh god, this is too many things for me to process at once. And convinced myself, like, if this is the second track in the demo, I'm not going to be able to handle this. It's a very different experience playing the full game. There is a story mode that takes you through all of the tracks in a very reasonable order. You don't have to do the story mode, you can just play the individual tracks and unlock other tracks that way. I'll say the story mode, very short bits of story. It's certainly not so story dense that it feels like it is impacting the pace if you just want to mash through it and keep doing the gameplay. But when you're playing all the tracks in order in the full game, it is a much more gradual, here is a single new enemy being introduced, here's like a song to get used to that, then a song where you're starting to introduce that in conjunction with other things you're already familiar with. Like, it very gradually builds up your familiarity with the staple of enemies a little at a time, in a way that is much easier to get to grips with. I do also really like that there are peppered throughout the story mode Rhythm Heaven or Elite Beat Agents style little music rhythm minigames that are usually much more simple in the kind of inputs they're asking you for, that will be things like follow along with a yoga lesson or put ingredients on a burger in time with the music, that are much more traditionally focused on keeping accurately on the rhythm and not throwing so many surprises to process at you. And I think those do a good job of giving you a little bit of respite and a little bit of, I'm feeling good at music rhythm again, before they throw you into something that might be challenging to process again. And even at the points where I was really kind of struggling, I never stopped having fun with it. And I think that is a testament to this game. Even at points where I would have to play the same song for a while to get to grips with it, I felt like I was doing noticeably better every time, and the music was good enough, and the animation was gorgeous enough that I was like, I want to get better at this, and I know that they've only introduced one new thing in this level, and if I'm tripping up on it, there's only really one new thing I need to get better at before this will click. And that sort of gradual nature of the story mode meant that even when I was finding it a little, like a new mechanic, a little overwhelming, I stuck with it to the point that it clicked. My biggest thing I'm a little disappointed with it on, and this is not a big complaint about the game itself, this is device specific. I wanted to be playing this on my Steam Deck or something similar, and you can play this with a controller, but because your inputs are left, up, and right, and sometimes all three at once, that's not a great fit for a single-piece D-pad.
Yeah.
Because accurately doing one of or multiple of those directions and not doing other directions incorrectly that would break your combo, a little fiddly.
Well, and that sounds like something that, in theory, one could adjust in, the Steam controller settings to, use bumpers or something like that. But what a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I found a workaround, so you can use the D-pad on the left, or you can use the A, B, X, Y buttons on the right. Mm-hmm. So I found myself doing, left D-pad, Y, and B. Mm-hmm. So, Y and B were my up and right. And that sort of worked. That worked good enough. But while I was playing that way, I was like, I can instantly feel that this will play better on a keyboard.
Oh, sure.
And yeah. I did. And I'm not usually someone who likes playing at my PC, because I associate being on my PC with work. But when I did move to PC and to a keyboard, yeah, instantly played a lot better on a keyboard. I am curious. This game is getting a Switch port at some point in the future. I don't think it's got a specific date yet. The Switch having a D-pad that isn't a true D-pad, that is distinct, separate buttons, I feel like would really help this game. And I feel like, while I wouldn't necessarily play this on a Steam Deck, I might pick it up on Switch, and I feel like it probably will play better there. But yeah, I played the demo, I wasn't convinced this was going to be for me, and then I picked up the full game and I gave it a go, on a keyboard with distinct buttons, and it's really started to click for me. I'm having a really good time with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. And sometimes that is important. I always bring up my experience with Shovel Knight, where I hated it on the... I think it came out on PS Vita, or... I always forget which one came first, but I played Shovel Knight on one system, hated it, played it on the next system it came out on, really liked it.
Yeah. PSP was first, Vita was second.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I really liked it until it came to the 3DS, and that's when it clicked. Because sometimes, even between, handhelds with just, that aren't as dramatic a shift from console to PC,
sometimes choice of platform makes a big difference, yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend picking this up if you're planning to play it on a handheld on the Steam Deck necessarily, but if you don't mind playing it with a keyboard, I think there is a really fun game here, even if it is one that is a lot less focused on fast rhythms and a lot more focused on learning and memorizing enemy patterns in conjunction with music rhythm. It's a very different kind of challenge. But what about you, Steph? What have you been playing this week?
Well, I've just been spending my week in Stephanie's Rum Condo.
What have you been playing in there?
Onimusha 2. Not really excited enough for what I just did. It is good, though. Oh my god, I had forgotten. Onimusha is a great series. Capcom not doing more with Onimusha is criminal. For those who don't know, Onimusha is sort of mechanically almost a missing link between Resident Evil and Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
It's got some mechanical survival horror trappings, but it's very action-oriented.
Imagine the gameplay of Devil May Cry with the pacing of Resident Evil, and you've kind of got Onimusha.
Yeah, sort of. It's got fucking tank controls. That was one thing I really liked about when they remastered the first one, like 5 years ago. I think it was like 5-6 years ago. They allowed for real grown-up controls, whereas playing this one, I've just got a straight emulation at the moment. I've not been looking at like what's out there for it. I know there's a big HD texture kind of pack you can get for it that fans put together. But yeah, tank controls. Luckily, they thought about it, which it's always nice when a developer actually thinks about what they're doing. Obviously, they didn't think enough to be like, maybe not tank controls. But they did think, maybe action game with tank controls, terrible time. So they're very generous about the character homing in on enemies. When you start slashing, Jubei, the main character, will turn to the nearest enemy. And if you hold down the block button, if he's attacked from behind, he will block from behind. Which makes a huge difference because there is easily a world, and I bet I could find games from this era that tried something similar to this, that didn't think like that. And I guarantee you, that experience would have been bad. But it's quite pleasant. I was apprehensive going into it because I'm like, I really loved it back in the day, but tank controls, PS2 kind of era, early action, is it going to be stodgy? Is it going to be... Am I not going to enjoy it like I did? Or am I going to like... Or will I maybe struggle with it or something? No. Honestly, it feels responsive and the action is quite fun. Obviously, it's no big character action thing. You're not flip-a-doobin everywhere. But it's straightforward and cool. And the story is bananas. I forgot. The first one would get a bit wacky. This one's straight up adorable. Onimusha 2 is the first game in the series I played. I just ended up with a copy, played it, really liked it, then played the first. And then played the third and was annoyed that Jean Reno was heavily advertised and they only used his character model in the English localization. But Onimusha 2 is adorable because you've got this, on the surface, rather serious storyline about Jubei Yagyu trying to avenge his clan who was murdered by Oda Nobunaga, the Demon King, all of that. And then there's this cute little friendship mechanic layered on the top of it, where there are these 4 NPCs who are all historical figures because, you know, warring states, which that's been fun. Playing Onimusha, now that I know all about, not all obviously, but now that I know a lot more about that period of history. So I actually get things now. I get who these characters are. But there are these 4 NPCs, and you can give gifts to them, and that'll make them like you more and give you presents back. And mechanically, that is all it is, except they may just turn up while you're in an area, like doing the story. Because it's, you know, got that survival horror structure. Stages are divided into rooms, you know, like you would a Resident Evil or something. And sometimes in a room, one of the NPCs who you've been, like, mates with will be in there and will just help you out. And there will be certain sort of more scripted events where if you've made friends, they'll help you out. And then as it develops, I'm nowhere near that sort of area yet, but I know that as it develops, you will get to play as them. They will have their own playable sections that you can unlock by this gift-giving thing. Which, for its time, really cute. And for the type of game it is, not something you'd necessarily expect. But the characters are all nicely done. OU, the woman character, is a bit 2000s era female character. Wallflower, helpless without a bloke kind of thing. Every character gets a cool intro in the opening FMV. She's showering. Everyone else is doing, like, cool stuff. She's showering. The breasts out, but not fully exposed for our pleasure. It's a bit embarrassing to look back on, but hey.
It does sound like she's breasting boobily.
She breasts boobily. Don't you worry about that. But it is cool, and I've been really liking it. I really enjoyed that game back in the day. The demons are funny. There's Gogandantis, the greatest swordsman of all demons, who throws his sword down into the ground out of nowhere, then lands on it from out of nowhere and balances on the hilt and does this big theatrical speech. And he's amazing. Brilliant character. The kind of character, like, you hear him talk for 3 seconds and you'd be like, that's Steph's favourite character, that one. Just beautifully flamboyant. I had an action figure of him once. I had every Onimusha 2 action figure. And
Ooh.
when I worked at a website, I thought it'd be nice because I was only interested in the Gogandantis. I was like, you know what, I could give these ones away in a competition. Now, ADHD never sent those.
Oh, no.
And it was ADHD that never sent those. I would have, but I was imprisoned by ADHD. I think they finally are no longer around, but I'd carried them with me for like 10 years. Guiltily and ashamed of myself. Being like, maybe one day I'll get back in touch with that person and send them. I'd have to make them now. I could just, but they're still really cheap, I think. But I would insist on making them myself if the person ever did get back in touch and was like, I was that jilted person who spent 10 years looking out the window for the mail delivery truck to come by, and I'd weep every time it drove past. God, actually, as I've said that out loud, I feel really bad.
Oh.
It's fine. This has been the long con. It was me. Ah!
Oh.
I give you permission not to feel guilty.
Oh, thank
it was
God.
Definitely me. There you go.
I'm really good at self-delusion. It's part of the whole compartmentalization gift package.
Mm-hmm.
So I will ingrain that into myself to move beyond the guilt.
Yeah.
But yeah, Onimusha 2, grand stuff, really. It's not 100% aged well, but I think anyone who can handle tank controls, I think if you case the explosion, you will like this. But anyone who can at least, I can stand them enough for a good enough game. Maybe not one made in the last 16 years, but for this, and because the action accounts for it, it's aged better than a game from that era with that weird survival horror, but it's not a survival horror at all structure, should do. It shouldn't have aged as well as it has, but it has, and it's fun. And it's very quirky. Lots of fun incidental dialogue. Talk to all the NPCs at least 3 times. Most of them will have funny things to say, and a lot of them will just give you stuff if you talk to them 3 times, which it never tells you that. You just stumble on it and you're like, I just keep getting free shit for talking. Full of neat stuff. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you, comrade? What else you been playing?
The only other thing I have been playing this week is Link's Awakening, the remake on Switch.
Oh.
Yeah. Link's Awakening is my favorite Zelda game with Zelda in the title. Because my favorite Zelda game is Alundra. But
Oh, mate. Fuck.
Yeah.
Hang on, I've got my Odin right now. Holy shit, I forgot about Alundra. Downloading that right now.
Real fucking good. Link's Awakening is my number 2, and it's funny because I'm playing it and I'm realizing, oh yeah, this game shares so much DNA with Alundra in terms of its content and setting, and it's more upbeat throughout, but very, very similar. Really appreciate the overall design of that game's map. The original Link's Awakening, it is a Zelda type game that feels so well suited to the hardware on which it was originally intended. As a Game Boy game, it feels compact. It feels like something you can pick up and put down in a way that the original Legend of Zelda doesn't, that Link to the Past really doesn't, because it feels too big for that. I really, really like that aspect of it. Something I think is interesting about this version is because it is functioning on hardware that can retain multiple screens worth of map region, it does that now, rather than taking the fully tiled approach to the map that Link's Awakening had on Game Boy. But it retains the, if you left the square of the map and returned to it, the enemies have returned, because we couldn't keep those in RAM feature, which I find interesting. You'll just step a little bit off screen. For example, if you've cut down a field of grass, you step a little bit off screen, you come back, and it has refilled all of the grass up to the point that you just walked away from. As soon as it was off screen, it came back. And there's something quaint about that respawning back in from the edges of the screen element still existing in a game where the tiles themselves, the reason for that function is absent. And you eliminated this one element, but you retained that spawn in thing. I don't know. It's cute, and it's rarely a problem, so I kind of appreciate it. However, the game gets 0 out of 10 from me because of the graphical change.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
You're not a fan?
Well, I'm not a fan of one aspect of it. In that, in the intro, I no longer get hot, wet Link fighting God and the elements on a ship. Right.
It's not in the game, but there is a gorgeous redone animation that was used for the first trailer for that re-release, and you can go look at that. It's not the same. It's not in the game, but
it's not the same.
They've made a very nice little 2D animation of it.
Took away my sexy Link. But yeah. Other than that, I really like it. I think they did a fine job. I do not give shit one about the stuff that they added in. Like the multi-dungeon thing, I haven't interfaced with it. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a weird thing in that they almost created a Zelda Dungeon Maker mode and then kind of cowered it out on it.
Yeah, that's the.
It's like it's almost interesting, but it's not worth the effort to do.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, and I'm fine with that because the game itself is so good, and they have gone to the effort to treat it with the respect that it deserves in the other aspects, except for Sexy Link. Yeah, I really like it. I'm glad I'm playing it. That's nice. That's it for me this week.
Well, we got a couple of newsy bits we can chat about this week.
Mate, I forgot how hard Alundra's intro fucked.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll wait. I'll be good and I'll wait till we're done. Of course, you're full. Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
So, some nice bits of news of some at least like some bad shit being dealt with. You know how some of the console eShop stores have been getting pretty full of hot garbage recently.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
The worst of the offenders, Nintendo, nothing's happened with them yet, but IGN did an article, a week or two back talking about, like, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox's stores and, like, some of the examples of, like, bullshit AI shovelware nonsense that's ending up on them. And it does seem like, if nothing else, Sony did maybe read that post and do something about some of the examples brought up. They've been going through clearing out some of their spam bullshit from PSN, which is nice.
Good.
In particular, there is a developer called Random Spin, who had such games as Supermarket Simulator Pro, Body Cam Shooter, Backrooms Inside the Escape, which apparently were all games using heavy amounts of AI and recycled assets, all of which are no longer on PSN, which were all ones that were brought up in the IGN article, so it seems like a degree of cleaning up shop for AI shovelware bullshit's been going on.
Yeah, and, people are always want to say, it's not their responsibility, and, you could always, people can make and sell what they want, and I always made the argument, It was one of the better known things I ever said on the Co-optional podcast, was that if Toys R Us started selling teddy bears full of spunk, people would want something done about it.
Yep.
A defective bad product that is going to drag down the name of your store is something that should be dealt with. And that was true when we were dealing with asset flip garbage. AI is like omega asset flippage. It's asset flippage on a more, in my opinion, criminal scale, because that's what theft is.
You're selling poison. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And do you want to be the place that sells poison?
Indeed. And I think that Laura's use of the word spam is perfect as well. Like, it's spam. If you don't want to be as dramatic as we are right to be on this show, at the very least, AI churned out crap. All the asset flips, it's flooding it.
There is a reason why I use the word spam. Like, digging into it a little, like, they released dozens of games in 2024, this one developer, Random Spin. In some cases, releasing as many as 7 or 8 games in a single month.
Fucking hell.
As one developer, there is no world in which you have enough time to make a good game and test it and check it is good and release it at that rate.
No, I check these stores a lot, and I have seen instances of the same game uploaded 3 times at once. Or more.
Yeah. On other news of things, good things that at least have come out in spite of bad things, we had to talk the other week about Bloodborne PSX getting cease and desisted by PlayStation, seemingly. That has not stopped that game's developer from creating more Bloodborne-adjacent content. We got the announcement this week that Bloodborne Kart is getting an expansion update called The Old Karts.
The Old Karts.
Yeah. Nightmare Kart, The Old Karts is coming, which I don't know if we know much about what's in it currently. I'm having a look for specifics, but it's getting more content. There's more content coming to Nightmare Kart, and that's great. I'm glad that at the very least this project is continuing to chug along with its own mildly tweaked
absolutely
nature.
The best non-woke racing game
of
2024.
Did you know people paid? Did you know that people paid fucking $30 per vote to vote in that fucking non-woke game awards? Yeah,
of course they did. It's always a grift. Every single anti-woke thing that ever comes up, there is a vig on that action somewhere. There is a catch. Someone wants paying.
Yeah.
$30 to vote.
Yep. Bloodborne Kart is the least woke racing game. Congrats.
Or at least it was before Lilith updated it.
Other things that are just kind of positive things to see. You know how games can be put on Steam and in early access, and there's no real rules about how long a game can be in early access or how frequently it has to be updated. Valve has put a new feature on early access games to try and highlight when an early access game maybe has been abandoned or maybe you shouldn't count on it getting out of early access.
That's great. It's become, just sort of habit to go and check and see when the last update was made, as factoring into the decision on whether or not to try an early access game. It's nice to just have something up front that's very explicit.
Yes, so it's not clear how quickly this new update pops up, but now sometimes when you go on an early access game, you will see a note pretty prominently placed that will say, the last update made by the developers was over X amount of time ago. The information and timeline described by the developers may no longer be up to date. Which is, I think, a very tactful way of saying...
that's respectful.
They might not be getting back to this one. Be aware of that if you put your money on it.
You want to hedge your bets and not outright say, it's not looking likely that this will get made.
Yeah.
So that's a good... I think people just...
Yeah.
They need that warning.
From what I can see, it seems to be, if you haven't done, at the very least, an update telling people what progress on the game is in a year. And I think that's very fair. If you haven't told people in a year, here's where things are at with the game, you probably deserve a heads up. This is a bit long in the tooth.
Oh, absolutely. I was so disappointed once I found a pinball game, and there aren't a lot of indie pinball games, not good ones. There's a whole series of them that come out, but I won't call them asset flips, but they're not good. But this one it was one table, pirate themed, looked lovely. Early access, and it hadn't been updated in like well over a year. No updates whatsoever. I did try it, and it was quite good, and I think it's tragic it never got, like, it just looks dead in the water. It happens far too many times, and it can be for innocent reasons. Games run out of money all the time. Even in early access, stuff happens. But it's tragic when you see one and you're like, oh my god, that is actually good. And I can see how much better it could be. And now it's just there, still available. As like this sort of half-dead thing. Quite creepy, really.
Yeah. In other news, Roblox is in some way being investigated. There is some kind of investigation involving Roblox being done by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US. It's unclear officially if this is an investigation directly of Roblox or if it is some other investigation that is tangentially involving Roblox.
Is it going to be an investigation to just find out if it's a good place for Trump to pick up girls?
Well, reports suggest that this might be something to do with... Do you remember back in November last year we talked about Roblox misleading investors by falsely reporting player numbers and highlighting the highlighting of a bunch of inappropriate and allegedly illegal content being shared on the platform? There's rumours that that's what the SEC's going and digging into.
That is what's going to be it, innit? That'll be the only thing that'll ever take Roblox down. Not the amount of criminal activity it turns a blind eye to. Not all the shit that's on it. Lying to
It's going to be lying to the investors, yeah.
Fucking hell.
Because that's the thing, like, the SEC's focus as a organisation would be to do with, like, market manipulation, and lying to investors sounds like the kind of thing that would fall under their remit. So, yeah, it's not going to be any of the shit of, like, putting children, in danger of harm. It's going to be the fact that they pretended more people were playing it than actually were playing it. Which, on that note, there is actually an update about the number of people playing Roblox. It's going down. It's finally starting to drop a little bit now. It seems. Their number of daily active users fell by 4% in the most recent quarter. Overall player engagement declined by nearly 10% during the last quarter. Sales fell short of what they'd forecast. They've gone from growing to starting to shrink. And who knows how long that'll stick for, but it might be a sign of changing times, or it might just be a sign that they're telling the truth about their player numbers now, and no longer lying about them and getting in trouble with the SEC.
As someone who had numbers growing only to have it, like, stop and then slow and then drop, it can be a very sort of upsetting and hurtful thing. Good. I'm glad it's happening to Roblox. They deserve to go to hell. There is no jail good enough for the people in charge of Roblox.
You are correct. And last thing, and this is just like a kind of interesting thing, Switch 2 got revealed a couple of weeks ago, and there were rumours beforehand that, like, you're going to be able to turn your Joy-Con on its side and use it like a mouse. That has seemingly now been, like, officially confirmed by some Nintendo patents that went up this past week, which is, like, a thing that people have been talking about since, like, last September is looking pretty official. Kind of more interesting, the patents show original current Switch Joy-Cons also supporting this mouse feature.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, which suggests that what they might end up doing is releasing Joy-Cons that will work on your current Switch, but will let it work in mouse mode. Which, to me, suggests... And, this is me just speculating, this is me having my gut instinct on that news. I feel like we're going to have a pretty long tail of cross-gen support going into Switch 2. I think we're going to get a lot of software releasing that works on your Switch but looks better on your Switch 2. This, to me, feels like we want to really not move on from that existing install base before we have to, even if it means backporting new system features to be technically usable on the old Switch. So, I don't know if that's for certain, but that's my read on seeing old Joy-Cons shown having mouse functionality. To me, that feels like we don't want to jump ship until we know that people actually care about jumping ship. But yeah, I think that's all the news we got this week.
All right, well, that's that then. I'm going to go play Alundra, I reckon.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a little go at that. But other people might not be able to enjoy Alundra right now, Laura. And that's really sad. However,
that is really sad.
They need not weep. For you can provide them that adventure in literature and sounds.
I probably can do that.
Yeah.
I'll point people where they could do that. They can find the stuff I'm doing at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Laura K. Buzz on Patreon. That's the one that pays the bills. As little as $1 a month over there really helps. YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you happen to find me, Laura K. Buzz. I'm gonna pitch you one thing that by the time that this goes up, I will have announced. For the next 6 weeks, starting on Wednesday the 19th of February, I've got a new little video series happening for 6 weeks called Abletop. Myself and Carrie Waterton, who does amazing work in the accessibility space, we have put together a little 6-part mini-series of videos talking about board game accessibility. Each of these 6 videos is going to be about an hour long and focusing on a specific aspect of board game accessibility. So we've got episodes about things like rule books and the process of teaching a game, mobility, dexterity, visual accessibility, cognitive load, communication. And each of these episodes is like an hour of us just really digging into good and bad examples that you can learn from of how to design accessible board games. So every Wednesday at 5 p.m. UK for the next 6 weeks, starting on the 19th, we're going to have new episodes of this little series, and we'll see what we do with it after 6 weeks. But we just wanted to have like a 6 hours of really condensed education about board game accessibility. And you'll be able to find those over on youtube.com/LauraKBuzz. What about you, comrade? Where are you at on the internet?
First off, that is so cool. That is
Hooray!
so cool.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
We've been working on this in the background for a while now, and we're so excited to finally put it out there. Me and Carrie have, if I do say so myself, we have really good chemistry working on stuff together, and I'm very excited to share this.
No, I'm really excited to see it. You can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I'm on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda from me at mercenarycreative.com. Some new stuff going in there. Go check it out. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
That's correct. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports this show and the web series and reviews on the Jimquisition.com, which still waiting for some for things to pick up game release wise before we get back in the writing. Until then, I stream whenever I'm able to at twitch.tv/Jim Sterling. I try and get on there at least once or twice a week, more if I can get away with it. Other than that, I can't really talk about some of the game projects and wrestling. I'm off until April, I think, at the moment. So a bit quiet on the exterior front, but things will be picking up from April onwards. Until then, we will be here next week, whether you like it or not. And if you're this far, why wouldn't you like it? We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.